Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Look at that, I forgot to remove a couple of these, but here we go. So I know a lot of you have been asking me to make a video about which 6-star champions best to use Awakening Gem for. Before we actually get to doing that, and we're going to do it class by class, a couple of disclaimers. For me personally, I do feel that 6-star Awakening Gems are still exceedingly rare items, and primary use in my head for them should be for your prestige. Quite simple as that. Take a look at prestige sheet, check out top prestige options, and that is who you should be using Awakening Gems in my subjective, like, personal opinion. That is largely how I use my Awakening Gems on, like, Hercules or whatnot. Dr. Doom got my generic, Hercules got Cosmic Gem, so on and so forth. Only after that, I started thinking about which champions would actually benefit my account more, which one of them really do need it, and things like that we're going to discuss here. If you do not care for prestige, which is not something that I advise, well, then here we are. We're going to be talking about this. Also, worth noting that I'm not discussing 5-star Awakening Gems, because at this point in game, I feel that there is no lack of 5-star Awakening Gems, and when it comes to awakening 5 stars, just go with whatever you want. Awaken whoever you like to play and be done with it. We can get new 5-star Awakening Gem every month, if not couple of months at this point, as long as you do like harder side event quests and stuff like that. They really are not that hard to come by, and they will only get easier to come by as time goes on, as your account progresses, so don't overthink it, in my opinion. Right, now let's get to the 6 stars. So I have divided them for each class. We're going to go from Science to Skill to Mutant to Tech to Cosmic to Mystic. It's also important to realize that there are two groups of champions that you can use Awakening Gems on. One group is that requires maximum SIG investment and effectively basically demands that you take those champions SIG 200. And then there are a group of champions who do not have any such requirement or are perfectly viable and comfortable at lower SIG levels. Like, fairly good example, Immortal Abomination, decent option for a Science Awakening Gem if you enjoy the champion. Fairly fine at 670. There's no specific need to take it up to 200. Unlike who I think is the best Science option for an Awakening Gem, and that is Mr. Fantastic. I think Mr. Fantastic at the moment is, in my personal book, probably top 3 Science champion, at the very least top 5, but definitely well worth Awakening Gem, arguably the best choice for an Awakening Gem. And he also needs as high SIG as possible. He's very good at lower SIGs. Mine's like SIG 45, but I'll definitely keep giving him 6 stones and try and SIG him up even higher. So far, we have Immortal Abomination, we have Mr. Fantastic, and then I think very, very solid choice for an Awakening Gem in Science class is Captain America Infinity War. I know a lot of people have kind of shied away from the champion a little bit, but again, a lot of that is explained with the fact that he is kind of SIG 200 or bust champion for the most part. He doesn't have the highest prestige, and that is quite a big investment, but I still think he is very much so worth it. In fact, I really want to awaken mine as well as after I have done singing up Mr. Fantastic. Aside from that, there will be some that say Spider-Man 2099. He is growing on a lot of people a lot. One of the bigger investments that I have seen misused in this game in general is awakening Human Torch. Human Torch does not need to be awakening by any reasonable measure. I used Unawakened 6-star for a really long time, and then I awakened him a year and a half ago, and at this point he's nearly like SIG 80 naturally, but that awakening ability has maybe come into play once. That awakening ability is really not important. So those are kind of my top 3 options. We have Captain America Infinity War in 2nd place, Mr. Fantastic in 1st, Immortal Abomination in 3rd, and I'm going to put Spider-Man 2099 in 4th. Thing is also a solid option if you are willing to commit to it, and so is Void, but both of these champions, again, require the SIG 200 investment. If you do not have or want to commit that much, then I think the best call would be Spidey 2099 or Immortal Abomination overall. Right, let's move on to the next class. And in skill class, we again have fairly few clear winners. I think Nick Fury is arguably the best SIG 1 investment you can ever make. He's also probably the best use of a skill awakening gem that exists. opens a ton new possibilities, completely new dimension of what, in my opinion, is the best skill champion in the game, and it's well worth doing so. Nick Fury should be an easy no-brainer option for a skill awakening gem, even a generic awakening gem. He would be in my top 3 generic awakening gem uses in the game. Then moving on, we obviously have Aegon. If you have quite a lot of high tier content left to do, then I definitely recommend Aegon, not just for like Labyrinth and Abyss, because you really don't need a 6-star awakened in like Labyrinth, and neither you do really for Abyss, but it's still a wonderful, wonderful champion. How he kind of, again, regained his usefulness, in my opinion, in 7.3. He became more and more useful in all of those shock vulnerability paths where we had the double determination, so on and so forth. And he's a very solid option. I think he's consistently kind of being overlooked as Everest type of champion when he's perfectly viable at much more content these days. I think he would actually make quite decently good map 8 option as well. Anyhow, another absolutely fantastic use for skill awakening gem is Kingpin. Kingpin is really great champion to awaken. He's already great unawakened, but awakening does help him increase his damage output, increase his overpower rotations, and is a very, very solid pick for an awakening gem. And the best bit is you get quite a lot of benefit by just taking him to Sig 65, which is kind of the cutoff. He's kind of like Sig 1, Sig 65, or Sig 200 champion. My Kingpin at the moment is at Sig 65, and he's an absolute beast. Definitely cannot recommend enough awakening Kingpin and taking him all the way up. So those would be kind of like the 3 skill class favorites: Nick Fury, Kingpin, and Aegon. Obviously there are other worthwhile uses. Again, I'm not gonna consistently keep mentioning the prestige, but you know, Thor Ragnarok for prestige reasons, or what else you might like. But those are 3 of the top 5 skill champions in game at the moment, and those are also the best uses of skill awakening gem, arguably generic awakening gem. Now going to mutant class, I have again a couple of favorites that definitely need that awakening gem much more than most champions do, and we're gonna continue ignoring prestige. And one of the best use for mutant awakening gem and the generic awakening gem as well, in my opinion, is Archangel. Despite what many people think, he doesn't need to be Sig 100 and something. Sig 20 is fine. That's it. Get him Sig 20 and he'll do the job just fine. Archangel is an absolute beast of a champion to invest in. One of the best mutant champions in the game. And again, he really does not need that high Sig. I have like Sig 200 5-star and a Sig 20 or Sig 40 6-star. And when it comes to ability accuracy reduction, I haven't noticed the single fight where I have used my 6-star where I wish that he was higher Sig. You know, if the fight is good for Archangel, he's going to take care of it. It's quite simple as that. And then moving on, I think Colossus is still a fairly solid choice for a Mutant Awakening gem. I would not necessarily say generic is what I would give him, but I probably definitely consider giving him a Mutant Awakening gem. Moving on further down the list, Kitty Pryde is one of the best use. Kitty Pryde's phenomenal new champion. I actually need to really ponder on where I'm going to put her in my mutant rankings, but I do believe that she's worth a mutant or possibly generic. I, in fact, myself gave her one of my generic, my second generic awakening gems that I ever earned. Very, very, very solid investment. Now, if you are a hardcore Omega player, then I think he does deserve a mutant awakening gem. It's not my personal cup of tea. I do personally think that outside of Alliance Wars, the champion's popularity is on decline. Does not necessarily mean that, you know, he's unusable and unplayable. Not at all. He's still a very, very good champion. But with Omega Red, you do need to be aware that he will require you to Sig 200 him, unlike, let's say, Kitty, unlike Archangel. So those would be like the 3 best uses of a Mutant Awakening gem in my book, if we're not looking at prestige at all. So moving on, let's keep this short and sweet as we can, to the tech class. Best use for tech awakening gem, it's obviously Ghost. It's obviously Ghost. Ghost is one of those champions. She's great unawakened, and she's much better awakened, and she's still insanely useful, and she's still amazing champion, and she's definitely one of those champions you really do want to get awakened. And she does not necessarily demand to be Sig 200, but you know, the higher Sig she gets, the better. There's no real set minimum, and definitely my first easy recommendation for a tech awakening gem. Now, moving forward, it kind of gets a bit trickier because most of the top tech champions do benefit from being awakened, but they don't desperately need it. Like Guillotine, it's a bit more safety net. Hulkbuster, some regeneration. And then we have like Ultron, a bit more utility, or what have you. Warlock, degeneration damage. But all of those champions perfectly function unawakened. And I guess past that point, I might have to say Penny. I think that heal block is very important to her overall ability kit, and that niche utility of being able to completely shut down like Nick Fury and stuff like that. I definitely look at giving an awakening gem to Penny if I had one, but I wouldn't want to give her a generic. It would have to be tech, because I don't think it's that important. But I think it's kind of like a solid pick for Penny. And then we have Guardian and Silver Centurion, both of whom you do want to get high sig if you're going to bother awakening them. But those are also some very useful picks here. Not entirely sure on Nimrod. I have very little experience with him, so I'm going to reserve my judgment here. But Guardian, Silver Centurion, Penny Parker, and then Ghost is the best choice for tech awakening gems, in my opinion. Let's move on to Cosmic Class. And Cosmic Class, it's very hard not to take Prestige into consideration. But again, putting that aside, champions that do benefit absolutely, insanely, amazingly, greatly from awakening. Hercules, obviously, that immortality is worth a ton. Hercules is a great champion, unawakened, and is a fairly safe rank up. Definitely very useful awakened ability that can be saving you left, right, and center. Especially right now, with Hercules being one of the best map 7, map 8 options, partially, largely because of his immortality. So very solid. Possibly the best use of a Cosmic Awakening gem is to give it to Hercules. I think Hyperion is incredibly good target for that Awakening gem as well. Now, if you run Liquid Courage Double Edge, that would be also Corvus. And alternatively, maybe a bit of a surprise pick, King Groot. I think King Groot is a phenomenal champion. He's in my book, probably top 5 now. I'd definitely rate him above Angela and Captain Marvel movie. In Cosmic Class, he's an amazing champion. He's been putting in tons of work everywhere, and I do recommend using Cosmic Awakening gem on him. Alternatively, I also do think that Angela is a fairly solid pick for Cosmic Awakening gem. I'm not entirely sure about Null at this point. CGR, CMM, those were both champions that I kind of chose not to awaken at the very least personally. I'm not saying CGR is a bad pick for Cosmic Awakening gem. It's just a decision that I made not to awaken. But on the bright side, CGR is one of those champions that you do not need to sig up highly, just like Hyperion, for instance. Right. And now we have the final class. And that is going to be the Mystic Champions. And again, we are not taking that Prestige into consideration here. And then I think Diablo has quite a useful awakened ability that personally is one of my most wanted champions to awaken right now, because he gains extra attack, damage reduction, all the good stuff. So Diablo awakened ability is super useful. I would give him a Mystic Awakening gem for sure. And then moving down the list, I know a lot of people might disagree with me. I actually think Mojo is fairly good target for a Mystic Awakening gem, but he does need a relatively high sig. I think Mojo is extremely underrated offensive champion, and I enjoy using him tremendously. And I also think Tigra fits in there as well. I think Tigra really does need to be awakened and relatively high sig for shorter to medium fights. In long fights, that awakening is not going to make much of a difference. In shorter to medium length fights, you do want to have Tigra awakened and relatively high sig. So I guess those actually would be my 3 main targets. Dr. Doom as well. I don't think that Dr. Doom Awakening absolutely changes the character and benefits him as much as it does to, let's say, Tigra or somebody. But Dr. Doom is such a dominant champion that you're going to be using him so often that you do want to get every single last bit of the benefit that you can get from awakening him. So I'd still go with Dr. Doom, Diablo, Mojo, and Tigra at the moment. And I think that is about it. That kind of concludes my personal advised champions to awaken, I guess. And that was largely kind of class awakening gems. Again, champions that I think are best suited for generics, and I cannot stress this enough. 6-star generic awakening gems are very rare item in the game. currently there's only one available in permanent content. If that doesn't tell you exclusive and rare, nothing will. There has been another one for sale, and then some tournament winners or something could have acquired another one. I don't think it is possible for any single person to acquire more than 3 generic Awakening Gems at this point. Maybe 4. But that's a task and a half. An average kind of like top tier player can get 1, and second was available on Cyber Weekend. No, but July 4th sales. I do think that Nick Fury, if we're not talking about prestige, again, I do think that prestige is something that should be taken in consideration for generic Awakening Gems. If you don't care for prestige, I think Nick Fury is arguably the best choice of an Awakening Gem. Hercules could be called the second best choice for an Awakening Gem. And I think then everything below kind of depends on what you need, whether it is an Archangel, whether it is Corvus, if you play him a lot, whether it is Aegon, if you do intend to use him for a ton of Everest content, whether it's potentially Hyperion or somebody else. But as a solid top 5, I guess we can go with Nick Fury, Hercules, Archangel, Corvus, and who are we going to give it to? Who is the 5th one again? Let's say Hyperion. I go with those are top 5 uses of an Awakening Gem. Or Cap America Infinity War. I guess that's subject to discussion there, the 5th place. Top 4 is kind of fairly far away in my book. Right, so that's what I think about the best champions to use Awakening Gems on. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Obviously, there are more champions, and ultimately, this is a game. And you should focus on the champions that you enjoy playing and that you will end up using. And, you know, do as you like. This is not me trying to tell you what to do by any means. This is me more so trying to explain what I would do and which champions I would focus on with my resources. And in large part, which champions I have already focused on. Like Hercules, Kitty Pryde, Doom are some of the champions that I have given my Awakening Gems to. Anyhow, that is it for now, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya! Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about